So standard database is a copy of your original database. Okay, and whatever the changes happening on the primary database, the changes will be applied on the standard database. So always the standard database will be in sync with the primary database. Okay. So here, yeah. So few background processes will be managing this sync. Okay. So what are those background processes? Okay. So you have primary database and the standard database. So in primary database, so you have a background process called LMS will be initiated. So log network service. So basically, how the changes will be replicated to the standard database. Yeah. So initially, when you configure the standard database, what you do is you make a kind of you will take the backup from the primary and you will create a new database, means other copy of database, okay, a kind of restore. So you take the backup and restore in the other machine, and then from that point, whatever the changes happens on the primary, that all will be in sync in the standard. Okay. So here, the changes which happens on the primary will be recorded as redos, right, in the architecture. So whatever the change that happens on the database, take as a standalone database. So how whatever the DML changes happens, so that all will be recorded in database buffer files and also in the read log buffer. Okay. So and read log buffer data will be flushed to the read log files, will be returned to the read log files by the log file. So whatever the changes happening, that you can see in the read log. So using these redo logs, okay, so what happens is these redo changes will be moved to the standard database or will be automatically. Okay, so you have to do some configuration. So when you configure the standard database, so what happens? The changes which are happening on the redo log file, or the recorded, the changes recorded in the redo log file will be transferred to the standard database. Okay. And on the standard database, you will see one more background process. Usually you see two background process. Okay. So one is remote file server and command managed recovery process. So these two processes will be running on your standard database. So this, what is the use of these two processes? What exactly? So this is responsible for copying or for sending the changes, redo changes to the standard database. Okay, so this is responsible. So if there is no standard configuration, so this process is not required. Okay, but if you configure standard database, so this process will be started and this will be sending redo changes or whatever the changes happening on the primary, that in the form of redos that will be sent to the standard server. On the standard server, remote file server process, RFS process. What it will do, this is responsible for receiving the changes. So whatever LNS is sending, so RFS will take the changes, that files. Then MRP process, managed recovery process. What this process will do means this process will apply on your standard database. Okay. So once it is applied, okay, so then the change will be whatever the change it is there, okay, the change will be applied on the standby and that will be in sync with the standby. So this is how the background, okay, so the mechanism, okay, these are three main background processes which will be started when you configure the standard database. Okay. So how you configure the standard database? Okay. So here few steps are there. Okay. What are the high level steps? So this is how high level. So on the primary database, okay, few things you have to extra. So if you are configuring the standard database. Okay. So what else? So your primary database should be in RK. So without RK log mode, you cannot configure the standard database or any database. So your primary database, if that is not in RK log mode, so you have to put the database in RK log. So that you already know how to put the database in RK log. Next is enable the force log. So what is enable the force log? So if you see, uh, whatever the change happens, that change will be recorded in the read log. But you have the capability to disable. Okay. So you have the capability to disable at table space level, at table level. Okay. So using the no logging option. So while creating the table, you can just mention that no logging. So even while creating the table space, you can give a keyword for no logging. So when you mention that, what happens? Whatever the
Sir,
changes happen.
yeah, some noise is coming, sir, actually. Not able to hear your
Okay.
voice properly.
About now,
Hello?
how about now?
Yeah, same noise is coming.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah, it's fine, sir, now. Yes, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir. It is clear now. Hello.
Hello.
Sir, it is clear now, sir.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah. So this force login. So why force login is important? The force login, let's say, that's what. So you can disable the login feature at the table space level and at the table level also. What happens when you disable the login? So it won't generate the redo. Okay. So our main uh, uh, data means a main thing here for standby configuration and for the standby to be in sync with primary is the redo data, because once the change is recorded in the redo, so that redo will be transferred to the standby. So then only the standby will be in sync with the primary database. But if you disable any logging, let's say for the table, so that won't be logged in the redo. The log will not be generated. Okay, redo won't be generated. If redo is not generated, then that can't be transferred to standby, and standby won't be. So that will break the uh, sync with the standby database. So in that case, okay, your standby will break. So because of that, you have to run this alter database force login. So when you run this force login, so what happens means your whatever the thing you have disabled, like no logging, let's say you have created table space no logging and table no logging, this will override. So what will it, this statement will do means this statement will force that. Okay, even though you have created with no logging, so this statement will force the changes to happen compulsory. It won't skip anything from the login. So this is the option. Okay, so we have to uh, use compulsory, so that for every change the log will be generated without skipping if any extra configuration is done at the table or table system. Mhm. So next is create password file for primary data. So password file is compulsory. So why password file is compulsory? Okay, so whenever you try to connect to the database, okay,
A call from
locally. So from here, when I log into the database, what I'm giving, just I'm giving SQL plus forward slash SSD, right? I'm not giving any username like sys, any password I'm not giving. So just giving forward slash SSD. That is called as OS authentication. And as far as you are able to log in directly to the server and connect to Oracle users, then this OS authentication will be done. But let's say if you want to connect from the other server remote as a sys user, so compulsory you have to provide the password for the sys user. And the password for the sys user should be outside of the database, like in the form of pwd file or a pwd. So this is called as password file. So this is the utility to create the password file or a pwd file is equal to, usually the file name should be Aura PW and database name. So let's say if my database name is ORCL, so the file name should be Aura PW ORCL. And password, so whatever the password you want to give, you can give. So entries, this you can, this is not required, you can give anything. Okay. So when you create a password file, so this helps, okay, for the user to connect to the database remotely as a sys user. So if you don't have the password file, okay, then you cannot connect to the database remotely as a sys user. Okay, so this is required when we create a standby database. Why means, so your primary will be on one server, your standby will be on one server. So we discuss this background processes. So LNS process, RFS process, MRP process. So RFS process will be connecting to the standby database through this account system. And RFS process will communicate to the standby server, primary server as a sys. So both the sides it will try to connect. Okay, so from standby server, it will connect to the primary. From primary, you have to connect to the standby internally. Okay, so to connect that, they should have the password file, and the password should be same. You have to create this password file on primary, and you can copy the same password file to the standby database and change the name. Like if your standby database name is some like ORCL underscore SBY, so you can go Ora PW Ora underscore SBY. So the password of sys user should be same on both primary and standby. So that is must. And one more thing, if you change the password, okay, then you have to move the password file to the standby database. Okay, because if the password is changed on the primary and it is not changed on the standby, your communication will break between your primary and standby, and the standby will go out of sync. Okay, so this is the important step. Next is create the standby redo logs. Okay, so you have to create the standby redo logs. So standby redo logs means these standby redo log files will only be used when the primary will become the standby. Okay. So when primary becomes the standby means, so you create primary and standby database. What is the purpose of standby means? If let's say your switchover and failover, okay, two things you can do. What is meant by switchover and what is meant by failover? Okay. Switchover usually we call as a high availability. Okay. Failover disaster recovery. This is just a terminology. Switchover means you will make the standby as primary and primary as standby. So this you will intentionally do from your side because of some maintenance. Maybe like let's say on primary server, you are doing some maintenance like OS patch or any O patch you are applying. So in that case, okay, so what you can do, you can transfer, you can switch, okay, you can make the standby as primary and primary as standby, or any OS patching if you are doing, okay. So that is called as switchover. Okay, so when you do a switchover, so the roles will be changed. Primary will become standby and standby will become primary. And in that case, once the primary becomes the standby, these redo log files will be used for the recording the changes. So you have to have a separate standby log file, and these will be only used whenever it is in the uh, standby mode. Okay, if it is not in the standby mode, these will not be used. Okay, so and if database running using SP file, create P file from SP file, and coming down. Okay, so these are the few parameters. Okay. You need to add some extra parameters. Yeah. So next is, and here this is the one. Okay, redo log. How many redo log standard redo logs you have to do? You have to do like how many. Let's say you have normal redo log groups as 3, so you have to create 4. If you have 4, you have to create 5 standards. So one should be more than the your log file groups. Okay. Then here DB unique name. Okay. So one thing you have to remember, there will be a DB name and DB unique name. Okay. So DB name will be same on primary and standby. Let's say ORCL. So ORCL, the database name will be ORCL on both primary and standby. But the DB unique name will be different. Okay, because it has to differentiate between primary and standby. So for that reason, there is another parameter called DB unique name. Okay, so you can give any value to DB unique name. Okay, so next is here you set the DB unique name, then log archive count. So this is the how many standby databases or total setup. Okay, so you have to give the DB unique name of primary and DB unique name of standby. So let's say you are creating more standbys, not one. So in Oracle, you can create up to 30 standby databases. So you can put like comma, and if you are configuring more than one standby database, then you will have different unique names for each standby, like prime, stand, stand one, stand two, stand three. So every server you should have a unique name. Okay. So like that, you have to add all the things. How many number of standbys you are configuring, so that many number of standbys you have to put. Right. Then log archive dest. So this is the destination one. This is the location locally. Means on primary server where you want to have your archives to be generated. Okay. So where your archives, this is the location. And here you say log archive dest2. So if you see dest2, we give service is equal to and the DB unique. Okay. So it's nothing but it's the TNS name. Okay. So you may be remembering about the TNS name. So this destination is for the standby server. Okay. This is on the local server. On the same server, you have this directory. In this directory, you want your archives to be generated. But the second destination, you are sending the archives to the standby location. And what you will give here, you will give the standby, the TNS alias. You have to put the TNS alias in the TNS names.ora, which will point to the standby database. So that you will put here. So on this log writer async, this is fine. So you can use default options. Okay. Next is you enable destination one and destination two. Remote login, this will be file server, file client. So these are depreciated. And DB file name convert and log file name convert. And these three are important. So what is DB file name convert and log file name convert? So the same thing which we use for cloning. If you remember, we use these two parameters for cloning. So why we use means if your source and destination directories are different. Okay, during the cloning, what we did, so we just ran like duplicate target database to what is it? Uh, auxiliary database or some clone database. That's what we have done. So what happens during that time? It will create the data files. Okay. So the data file should be created in the location, in the different location other than the original location. If you are creating on the same server, okay, you should give this, because if you don't give this, it will try to create the data files of clone also in the same location. So it will override. So when you are uh, creating the other server, if you have the same directory structure like on the source, this is not required, because on the other server you don't have the files, right? Because you have the directory, but there is no database, there won't be any data files. You have just directory, there won't be any data files. So what Oracle will do is in the same directory it will try to create the files. Okay. But if you don't have the same directory there, you have a different directory. then you have to put the directory names here. Okay, source directory and target directory. Okay, and log file name convert. This is standby file management auto. These values can be like manual and auto. Okay. What is this manual and auto? So it should be auto only. Just a second. Yeah. So mm, yeah, standby file management auto. So manual means, say, always your standby should be in sync with the primary, right? And whatever the changes happening on the primary, the changes should be transferred to the standby. But the changes like adding the data files, okay, that also should be, if you add a data file on the primary, okay, the file should be added automatically created on the standby also. So that will be controlled by this parameter, standby file management. Okay. So whenever, let's say, you added one data file on the primary, so what happens? Automatically on the standby also the data file will be created with the same size. Okay. So if you put this value as manual, then it won't be created automatically on the standby. So you have to create that again manually. So always you have to put auto this one. Okay. Then listener should be configured. Okay. Because both the database should be communicated. Okay. So that will happen through the. So let's open the. Okay. So far up to that steps. Okay. We will do. Okay. Just taking space. Let's check. Wait, is this DQ? Okay. So how can you check whether your database is okay? So it is an archeological only. Okay. Then so check whether your database is in force login mode or not. It's not. So what I do, I go to my database here and see this. So now it is S. So create a password file. So let's see. The password file will be default in the DBA file. And DBS. Say something. So ORPWD PWRCL, that is already a password file. Okay, that is fine. Okay, so how I can check? I will open the file. So, or I'll change the password. Just, I think I'll be hack longer, but we can check later. So create a standby redo logs. So what I'll do here. Okay, so we have 3 redo logs. Okay, so I can add 4 standby redo logs. Okay, so what I'll do is select. Okay. $V log per hour. So I did 4 extra. So here, from here you can see numbers. So here these 3 are online, these 4 are standard. So that is done. So I will add these parameters. Okay. Can be the unique name for the highlighted document. No, DB unique name. Feature control. Yeah. Then destination one. So I'm setting the destination for formatting. So set this is how we check the listener is listening or not. Yes, I can at night when the listener is not running, what I'm doing, network, listening. Okay, so I will see. Okay, so device, what's next? Now what I do is another one destinations. Then Mm, this is 3 to 5 actually. Okay. So next standard. Okay. So remaining part will let me. So let me mostly next part is the standard. Okay. So most all the parameters you have set on the standard. So automatically do the standard. Okay. Okay. We'll meet tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, okay, sir. And sir, one more thing. Actually, uh, earlier we discussed about the network related files like listener and TNS names. No, so today actually I tried to. Uh, Actually, I changed the path to admin, Oracle Home Network admin, and then I tried to search for the files like ls-lrt. There, I could not find those two files, sir. Actually,
Hello.
hello,
Yeah.
hello,
No. Okay. Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. The remaining part. Okay. So I think it will take 15, 20 minutes. So tomorrow we'll conclude the thing. Okay.
Yeah, 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 that's fine, sir. But so actually, today I tried to open the network related files like listener file and TNS names. Actually, I changed the
Okay.
directory to the admin, like Oracle Home Network and then admin. There,
Okay.
I opened the files like ls-lrt, but there I could not find the listener and TNS name files, sir. Actually, there generally we have to get four files.
Okay.
So,
You can create what you do. So vi listener dot aura.
okay.
So, okay. Mm,
So by default, there won't be any listener or TNS names, right?
yeah, sometimes you don't get. Okay, so what you can do is you can create manually. Okay,
Okay,
so just vi listener dot aura and put the entries. So entries for listener you can put like this. Okay. Mm, check here. Okay, so let me share the screen. Can you see my screen?
yes, sir.
Okay. So you give vi listener dot aura, like vi listener dot aura. Okay. So if for you it will open a new file, nothing will be there. So what you do is you can add this entry, and here SID list will be your database name. So this is the listener name, and under this listener, how many databases you want to register? That is this one, SID list, and I have three databases registered. So Oracle Home will be same because you have only one Oracle Home, and SID name. Let's say your database name is ORS here, so only one entry is enough. If you create another database, you add one more from SID description and you give the SID name, like whatever the database name you have, that you give like this. Okay.
Okay,
So,
okay,
so once you give, like when you do VI, then go to insert mode, press I, it will take you to the insert mode, then type or paste and change the SID names to whatever the database names you have. Okay. So if you have multiple database you want to register with this listener, So you have to add these lines multiple times, these three lines, and give the database name.
Okay,
Okay.
actually, from where shall we get this type of script, sir?
These you can get in net also, or
Okay, okay,
mm, yeah. So mostly net, or you can search listener dot some sample you can get. Okay.
okay. The same thing
And
like for TNS names also.
yeah, so DNS names, what you have to do, service name ORCL. Okay. So
Okay,
for each database, you have to have each DNS. This is for one database for ORCL.
okay,
So let's say if you have another database, copy again, put one more entry and change this one and service name. So this should point to that particular database. Okay.
okay, okay,
So
okay,
once you've done that, then LSNRCTL start listener. Okay.
okay,
So my listener is already there. Okay. So once it starts, then you can see the status. Okay. In status, you have to see your database names like this. Service ORCL status is ready. Whatever the database you are registered in the listener, that all should be displayed here. My new DB, ORCL, SBY, ORCL, all this. Okay. And
okay,
then you can use your listener with the TMS. Okay.
okay, okay. Okay, sir. Yeah, actually, this can be used for whenever the client want to connect to the database. Then we have to give. This will be useful, right?
Yeah, listener will be on server side, so you have to register all the database to the listener,
Okay,
and this should be at the client side because client uses this DNS.
okay,
They'll give like sys at the rate ORCL means they'll connect to this database ORCL.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah, okay,
so
sir.
I gave you that. I put in the IAM, okay, chat window, so you can try that. Okay,
Okay, okay, sir.
manually. Okay,
Okay,
okay then.
okay, sir. Bye.